Hello, everybody. We just rehearsed. We just rehearsed a new way of starting the show because it's the one thing we can never do is open the show, and it was
You need a way to start.
It was even worse than the shambles it is normally. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We have a literary episode today. We've got Christina Dalcher coming up, who was, of course, at the center of the recent controversy surrounding a fascist who works at Waterstones, who thinks that book burning and book destroying is good now for some reason. So we'll be talking to her, and we'll be discussing the week's events as always. Been a very active week, ending with the Olympics last night, which everybody's very angry about. What did you think of it? Did you watch it?
No, I didn't need to watch it because I've seen all of the takes.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing, isn't it? There seems to be quite a lot of fuss about the Last Supper. And it seems to me, sort of my take on this is that people they're finding something uncomfortable, and so they focused on the Last Supper. But actually, I think what they're actually finding uncomfortable is the whole drag queen thing. But it's easier to just focus it on the
I've seen a lot of energy being taken up by people saying it's actually Vashnu or something because it's Greek and blah blah blah. That's why he looks like Papa Smurf and so on. But,
he's supposed to be Dionysius, I presume. Dionysius, kind of like a bacchanalia, right? To me, I didn't even catch the Last Supper thing. I just thought it was a Greek bacchanalia. But yeah, the drag thing. I mean, I'm just so kind of annoyed by drag discourse. It's for nightclubs. It's raunchy. It's tasteless. It's Dionysian. It's rowdy. It's sexist, and it should stay in nightclubs. The idea that we're turning it into an inclusion thing, that we're making it a proxy for progress in gay rights, is just, it doesn't work. It's so stupid.
No,
why not have stripper poles? It's the same thing.
Yeah, exactly, Artie. I mean, I do think it seems like somebody's sort of saying, how can we be edgy? How can we attract the kids? How can we be edgy? And sort of maybe 3 years ago, when they were actually having to put it all together, because it takes a long time, doesn't it? They were like, what's edgy? And they were like, oh, look, this whole LGBT, and it's drag. And so they've been going on. But in the last 3 years, we've been absolutely massively saturated. And so they've tried to do something edgy and new and fun. But actually, we're like, oh, fucking drag queens again.
More drag queens. Yeah. It's like, it does look like, I think it did look at times like what I imagine working at BBC News must look like.
I remember I was in Manchester a year and a half ago when I was visiting you guys overseas, and Manchester has a huge gay village around the canal, and it's got like so many gay bars. It's got like 25 or something, maybe not that much, but it's a lot. It's like a whole massive cluster of gay bars, a little mini French Quarter like New Orleans, but gay bars. Every single one of them drag nonstop. Every single one, even the all men's leather bars where you'd expect to see the biker dudes kind of thing. Drag. Like, this is a leather bar. Why is there a drag queen in here? And it's just like, we're running out of things to make gay interesting. So everybody's desperately running to trans. And it seemed particularly tasteless for France to get into it. We expect France to be so cultured and high-minded and to be edgy and provocative, as the French always are, but not in such a tacky way. Drag has no edge to it. Drag is lame. Drag is like, hasn't been edgy for 40 years.
The French have done much worse than that. Thinking of what's his name and his daughter. What was his name again? Who died recently? The smoker daughter, Serge Gainsbourg.
Oh, Serge Gainsbourg, right? Yeah.
And I remember going to see French films, and they have a very strange attitude towards incest and stuff like that. You see things in actual popular movies. And there was one that was about, sorry to derail us for a sec, but there was one that was just this really romantic, lovely swashbuckler with, what do you call it, musketeer types, you know. And there was this guy, and he found this baby, and he brought her up from when she was a baby, and taught her how to sword fight, you know. The film ends, they get together.
Maybe that's why France is all in on drag, because there's such a sexist culture in so much of France that it's like the air they breathe. Like, oh, sexism. We all friends. This is fine.
Napoleon, whatever it was, the first constitution or whatever, it was full of the most sexist stuff. You know, like mistresses treated terribly, wives treated terribly. It was really baked into the foundational document, you know. So it's
Well, still have naked women selling toilet paper. If you see a toilet paper advert in France, it's going to have like a unnecessarily naked woman with heaving breasts. You know,
we have puppies. We have puppies running away with it.
Sorry, what do you mean?
Toilet paper.
Oh yes, that's right.
The Andrex advert. It's always. But to go back to drag queens, I think what's interesting about it is that it's almost used as a sort of bridge into trans, isn't it? But to me it seems so odd that people are trying to do this in almost in a way that they haven't necessarily thought through, because drag queens, they are men performing a ridiculous parody of women, and I've always had a problem with drag. For forever I've had a problem with drag. I can see the appeal entirely, you know, and at uni or whatever, I'd go along, but you can go along and enjoy yourself, but also sort of think, oh, I can see the problem here. But it seems they've used it as a sort of way in to trans, almost as a sort of sleight of hand. Like, if you can accept this sort of parody of women, and we all understand it's a parody of women, but actually these are women. Oh, but not these women, not these men who act in entirely the same way. Yes. But these are women. So if you accept this, you have to accept this. Yes. And there's something a little bit odd about it.
It's queering. You're queering.
Yes,
you're just fucking up the definition. It's not. You can't decipher it. You're just like, gender fuckery. It doesn't make sense. It's self-contradictory. So just turn off your brain, because it'll short circuit if you try to logically process it. You know? Yeah.
Do you know they tried to?
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, Helen. I was just like, queering. That's the word.
I couldn't work it out. But you've said it exactly. You're entirely right.
Do you remember when they tried to get dragphobia going?
What, dragphobia?
Yeah, I saw that in an article. I can't remember where. It was a Guardian.
Dragphobia. It stopped trying to make dragphobia happen.
Exactly. Yeah. You know, but it was really it was doing exactly what you say, Helen. It was putting the word drag in front of the word phobia to try and associate them with trans people. You know, it's the strangest thing. You know, it's like, and you know, the way I look at this, right, is that drag may be sexist and misogynist and caricatures of women, but it used to be confined to nightclubs and gay clubs, and gay men would have a secret laugh about it, and it would actually cause no more harm than that. I don't think it would necessarily translate to more misogyny in the gay movement, although I know it is rife with misogyny, you know. But its damage would have been contained at that level, you know. It would have been, but what they've done is they've you know, made it kind of take over the world, where its meaning is, well, it's unintelligible. What is its meaning in the wider world? What is its meaning outside of a nightclub? It's just fucking complete widow twankies running around.
Well, it's aestheticizing homosexuality. Gay isn't a look necessarily. Anyone can be same-sex attracted. Your postman, your bus driver, your teacher, your colleague, anyone can be gay. There's no way to visually represent it. And since we're analogizing everything to race, because everything, you know, America pushes its agenda, and America's big problem of inequality is racial inequality, and that's visual representation, right? In the media, they're trying to turn gay rights and gay representation into a visual thing. Well, you can't turn gay into a visual thing unless you take the part where gay tends to correlate to gender nonconformity, and that's true, but not necessarily always the case. And then jack that up to 11 and turn it into drag.
No, you're right.
For a lot of gay people, drag is a way of venting. It's a sort of maybe not very productive way for feminine gay men or masculine gay men who have a feminine side that they're suppressing to sort of vent out that tension of their own sense of gender nonconformity. And it's not very productive, and it's sexist, and it, and it should stay in the nightclubs. But there's an element of drag that has to do with gay people rebelling against the gender restrictions that they feel in their lives. But to take that and make it the central aspect of gay culture and of being gay is that you're doing this unproductive, kind of toxic, raunchy thing to vent. You're not feeling good about gender nonconformity.
We've said this many times, haven't we? But I certainly sort of see it and feel it in the idea of sort of teenage girls or slightly older now. I see becoming trans men. You can absolutely empathize with how they feel about sort of becoming a woman in society as we are now, and but their way out of it is an individualistic solution, whereas sort of in the 70s, 80s, 90s we turned to feminism. We understood that this was a sort of collective problem that women needed to fix for women. But now you've got this insane idea. Oh, and they have played it so well, haven't they? I will constantly say they've played it well with the idea that you are trans. Trans is who you are. It isn't, as you've pointed out so many times, Artie. Trans is an action. Trans is a verb. But for them, trans is who you are, and they have really played this very, very, very well. Because you can see in every discourse, that's the fundamental issue. It's between people who understand that trans is a reaction, to an external or many external sort of factions or factors that have happened to you. And they've simplified it massively into trans is who you are, and you can't.
And they do that. They do that specifically so that you don't question anything.
Yeah.
They say it's just who I am. It's just innate, because I don't want to look into the factors that cause me to identify into it, because those would require therapy. All the things you're going into a trans identity because you're running from something that you should probably get therapy for instead. But if you say you just are trans and it's innate and no one's allowed to question it, you're blocking away all your mental health problems. You're blocking away all the things you're running from. And you're saying that's phobic. And then you're externalizing the threat. Your own,
and you're also preventing anyone else.
Everyone else is that demon now. Is the transphobe? J.K. Rowling is your own trauma. J.K. Rowling is your own trauma.
Enemy. And it prevents anyone from questioning anything. You simply can't talk about it. We've come against it so many times. You can't talk about it. Even talking about the fact that trans isn't an innate identity is so transphobic. It's so terrible. It's been very clever. They've pushed it very well.
Oh, there's all sorts of little twists to it. My favorite is I am not an ideology. It's like it's like
so many times as an answer to a question that I pose, something that I think this is an interesting question. I've thought this through, and somebody will say, trans people aren't an ideology. And I'm like, well, I'm not suggesting that they are. I'm simply saying that the idea of trans, the whole framework that needs to prop up this idea is an ideology. Obviously, we know this. Of course we know this. They know this. It's just one of those ways, again, of just sort of, it's just fucking soundbite. So many fucking boring soundbites.
Not working for them quite as well. I've noticed...
No.
Gosh, there's a lot of pushback now, and celebrities trying to get an easy bit of virtue signaling away. They never come out of that well, So it's interesting. I just feel like the Richard Ayoade said was, had a chance to stand up for me, and
that's nice.
Yes, and did, despite the way it was written, it was a very weirdly written article. They acted. Again, it's like, what have I done, to be spoken about like this? you know, because they said that he supported them, but he later clarified his comments. You know, so it's like, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is. You know, you have been so. You're I mean, you're kind of a meme in your own time, aren't you? Anytime somebody needs to talk about you, they need to say. However, you're almost like a far right figure when people have to say, "Well, I'm not far right." However, you know, so I'm not a transphobe. However, but people are so convinced that you are now that, you know, they have to clarify everything. They have to give you. They have to say, "You may have said this." However, they can't treat you as a sort of normal being.
But you know, the thing that annoys me about it is that, like, you know, again and again, I've been proved right. One of the things that my Wikipedia page does about me is that, you know, it lists all the things that are designed to kind of make people's alarms go off, you know. And one of the things it goes into is that I said that the trans surgeries had much in common with Nazi surgeries, which of course they do, because the Nazis wanted to fix the problem of gay kids and autistic kids, so they sterilized them too, you know. And in fact, the thing that blew me away was that I read the WPATH files and found out from them that the first vaginoplasty was carried out by a guy who later joined the Luftwaffe and ended up torturing people in Dachau, you know. So they literally were the first trans surgery was literally done by a Nazi. So and because I know stuff like that, this is what they do. Because I know stuff like that.
You know too much.
They paint it, I know too much. I knew too much. They paint it as madness because they're not across the subject. They're not across the issue. They don't understand the issue. You know, they've been told how to react to the issue by lobbyists and journalists working for lobbyists. You know, it's an extraordinary time for me, in particular, to be alive.
Well, it's just, I mean, the whole thing is, it's been crazy now for the past few years. Obviously things have moved on. You know, there's definitely things have moved on. I can talk about this. You know, I went to my daughter's graduation and she said, "Don't talk to my boyfriend's parents about this and this and this." And so, of course, I did. And they were, you know, she was like, "Yeah, no, I thought, of course." I mean, she was like, I totally support sort of trans people, but obviously they shouldn't be in women's changing rooms. And I was like, yeah, you know, we all know this. Everyone who isn't sort of massively part of the left and who feel that they really need to sort of hammer this point home, they all believe, you know, yeah, of course, anyone who identifies as trans should have human rights, because they already do. I mean, they literally already do. I mean, honestly, it's pathetic, isn't it? We live in such a privileged society, you know, in the Western world, and you know, we have a human rights framework that the government does adhere to. They do have human rights. This pathetic cry of, "Oh, trans rights are human rights," is just, honestly.
There's no way. It's such a it's just one of the many circular, stupid statements.
So many.
You
so
know,
many.
there's no kind of there's never an explanation. Mike, do you know what I think you've probably heard more than any other sentence, Helen. I've already answered that question.
I hate that.
Yeah.
It's like a child argument when you're trying to get someone. It's like, I already told you. It's like you're obviously trying to avoid saying something.
It's just you can scroll back.
Yeah. Which one is it? Which of the many tweets is it in which you answered my question? You know?
No. I mean, yes, I tweeted this out, but it was quite late at night. I had the Olympics version of cubicles as an answer to my question. Somebody purely was trying to suggest to me, and Fond of Beatles, she was in the thread, I mean, this is why I joined it. She was actually trying to suggest, and it was a woman, that the problem with sports isn't that men are coming in on women's sports, is that women like us are focusing on the wrong sports. What we should actually be doing is creating our own sports that women are naturally better at, not going with the patriarchy and playing sports that men have devised and because they're better at it. Make some new sports, lady. Make some new sports. And you're like, this is just like cubicles, isn't it? It means that you don't have to address any of the points. You just say, throw it all away. Just tear it all up, throw it all away, rather than just adhering to the very simple idea that men should not stay, men should stay out of women's places, men should stay out of women's sports. It's like, no. What you need to do is rethink everything about society. And it's your job. And it's your job, Helen.
Yeah.
Well, that's sport is a really, really unusual thing. And with the Olympics out, it's a good time to kind of remember what sport is, what the point of it is. It's highly symbolic. It's not productive work. You're not playing sports because you're creating a piece of productivity. People don't dribble a basketball around a basketball court to generate money or to build something. They do it for the sake of doing it. They do it because competition and the spirit of athleticism is a shared cultural value. And the Olympics is a global cultural value. So there's an element of performance. There's an element of competition. There's a deeply this goes back to our tribal instincts. We are animals with physical bodies. So we want to work with our physicality. We are warrior tribes, so we have warring. It brings people
together so that we can all support our own team.
Yeah,
it does. I remember one of the best times was the London Olympics. Oh, everyone was so happy. It was like watching Friends again. When you had to watch it, you'd have to go into work the next day and talk about the cliffhanger, and it was just like that. Did you watch the cycling? Did you watch this? It was really good. It was such a lovely time. Sorry, Artie, carry on.
No, it's so true. The 2012 was London, and
it was
beautiful. Excellent. And by comparison to Paris's, you had such beautiful ceremonies in the 2012 Olympics. But all this stuff, that means we have to treat sport. We have to look at the values that sport represents, and we're seeing a cultural value shift in society. Back in the 1800s and the 1700s, society's predominant cultural value was protecting your honor above all else, because you didn't have recourse to the police and to the law and to a kind of stable law and order system to keep your life together. So you had to rely on your nobility and your honor, because that gave you enough standing in society to protect yourself and your family. So sports at the time were representations of honor. So you would go out and hunt large game, wild boar hunting, sword fighting, épée, all this, dueling. All these sports have to do with protecting your honor and your dignity. And then as democracy started stabilizing, with the United States Constitution and what have you, we suddenly have this like law and order democratic system where the shared common value of society is doing your best as an individual. Personal achievement is more important than your honor. Suddenly the most important thing to be in society is the best you can be with the hand you were dealt, with what you were born with. You have to be the most achieving. So sports are suddenly symbolic, and they have for the last 200 years been symbolic of teamwork, working hard, best athleticism. It wasn't about killing the largest animal you could or being the best sword fighter. It was about being the most athletic person, being the best sport when you lose, being the strongest team that works together. This is all about the best you can achieve as an individual. And now there's a new cultural value, which is that we want society to even out all the impurities and all the imperfections and all the imbalances. We want the government to come in and to equalize everything and to make everyone exactly equal. So now sports is becoming a pageant of representation instead of a competition of being the best you can. Suddenly it's unfair that males and females, that males can't play in women's sports. So it doesn't matter whether they're going to win because they're going to achieve better because they've been dealt a bigger hand, literally, from birth. Suddenly all that matters is that we're demonstrating our virtue by having the government force women to let these men play along with them. So the fact that men are being put in women's sports really shows that in the minds of the far left, they've just gone to an entirely different a deeply held cultural belief system that's just crazy.
Well,
sorry, that was a long tangent, but I hope it makes a little sense.
No, it's good. It's interesting. It's actually interesting, Artie. Yeah.
There's actually a short story by Kurt Vonnegut called Harrison Bergeron, which is set in a, quote, dystopian future where the government enforces equality by handicapping individuals with above average abilities. In this society, people who are considered more intelligent, athletic, or attractive than others are required to wear various devices to bring them down to an average level. I would say that's got a similar that's actually a similar principle to editing the books of people like Roald Dahl. It's because what made Roald Dahl such a classic writer for children is those gnarly, gristly, grown-uppy bits, those kind of nasty insights into not just the villains in your story, but villains in a wider sense, and they are trying to defang him so that he will be like these other writers who believe in things like cis and non-binary identities, and it will all just come down to this mediocre mush, because no one, like the people in the Kurt Vonnegut story, will be able to jump higher than the average. It's interesting.
It's an interesting point. So, what did we think of Elon Musk on Jordan Peterson? That was interesting.
That was huge.
I mean, it's this is nothing that we haven't seen before. There's nothing that we haven't seen thousands of times now. Women and fathers coming on, to Twitter and saying, this has torn our family apart, where my daughter has, the school has affirmed my son.
Yes.
And, the rule, do you want to have a live daughter or a dead son with the most ridiculously low fucking bar so that nobody has to justify anything apart from saying we can do whatever we like because otherwise they would be dead. It's one of the most terrible things that you can ever tell a parent, and I will never forgive anyone who has ever used that line.
Yes. Yes.
But, it was interesting to me that Musk, even in lockdown, he was saying that, which actually, we've been talking about this for I know we only started talking about it in lockdown, but, individually, we've been talking about it for a while, that, Musk was...
Sorry,
No,
Christina.
I'm assuming you're talking to Christina.
Sorry, Christina, I'll bring you in 1 second. We can't hear you. You're fine.
Okay.
Okay.
But it's interesting, he felt, despite being Elon Musk, one of the richest men in the world, and arguably one of the most powerful, felt coerced into sort of signing away, because again, it was so well hidden. It was so well hidden. They silenced our fucking voices, hadn't they? So effectively that even someone like Elon Musk just sort of signed away his kid into this terrible.
But I tell you what. I mean, I want to bring in Christina now in a sec. So we'll either talk about that more if you have something to say on it, Christina, or we'll move on. But tell you what he has done. I think there are a lot more stories out there that we don't know about. And he has just given a lot of people the courage to tell their story.
To talk. Totally. On the platform.
If the smartest guy in the world could be fooled by these people, then you, an ordinary person who was dealing with a teenager who felt you knew more about this stuff than you did, you can be forgiven too. Do you know what I mean? But anyway,
good point. Yes, bring Christina. Bring her on.
Hello, Christina. Lovely to see you.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hi, welcome.
Hi, Graham. Thank you. And for what it's worth, I watched that entire Peterson Musk interview. And I mean, start to finish. And I agree completely with what you've just said. I mean, first, he also really impressed me. I don't think I've ever really listened to Musk speak at any length before, and I feel like I've got some amount of respect for him. So just to kind of
I agree.
make that
Yeah,
transition.
I felt the same. I felt that, what we knew about Musk was all, like he is, everything else I've heard him speak, he's sort of quite awkward. But on this, he came across like well, and he told his story. It was very interesting.
What I don't understand, I'd love your opinion on this, Christina, is do you remember he kind of went to Rowling and said, maybe you should tweet about other things other than the issue? And I just thought that was very strange if he'd had this experience,
Well,
like
the thing is, Musk is obviously quite strange. Like there's no question. I mean, he is. You
have to be strange to do that, right?
Exactly. And so, he could see that Rowling is creating a lot of content over this, and he's thinking, how much more content could she produce if she talks about other things as well? I mean,
exactly.
It's as simple as
Exactly.
that.
When was that, by the way, that he said that to her?
So a couple of months ago.
It was a few months ago, and I wonder whether they may have had words in the background, and possibly he had told her this story, because, like, he might be just like a lot of other people in this fight, in that the actual information he's getting is very limited and very, I sent a thing today about, I'm sure these, Christina, the Eunuch archives that Redux covered, which was a website that WPATH were linking to that contained child pornography about castrating children. Right. So you have WPATH, who literally are castrating children, chemically castrating children, working with fetishists who get a second.
It boggles the mind, but you're absolutely right, Graham. I mean, you three, Artie, I don't know where you're based, but I don't think it's on my side of the pond.
No, I'm in Canada. Yeah.
Oh, well, that is my side of the pond.
Okay.
But here in the States, anyway, the media is very, very continues to be very quiet on this, and it's like pulling teeth trying to get anybody to even listen, because if they don't see it on MSN or CNN or one of the the free news sites, then they don't see it.
Yeah, it's the same.
That's actually it. I mean, look, even the brouhaha, to use a kind word for it, that happened in front of Union Station the other day with the flags in the U.S. But nobody can find that in the U.S. newspapers. How could that be? Yeah, it's I just had a friend over who said, I've looked everywhere, I can't find it. So, nobody knows about Levine and his interactions with WPATH regarding their updated standards of care. I think number 8 it is. I mean, nobody knows that. Oh, there's my husband.
Yeah, I mean, trying to remove the lower age limit for child surgeries.
Good grief. It's abominable. Yeah. And California, I mean, here in Virginia, where I am, a couple of times a bill was brought before the state legislature to force schools to inform parents if their kid is socially transitioning or otherwise in school. And the legislature here in the state, quashed that. They said, no, we're not going to do it. But Newsom in California, and speaking of Musk, of course, everybody's heard about Musk, finally saying, that's it, I'm leaving, because what just happened in California is not just that the state legislature said, we won't tell the schools that they have to inform parents. We'll actually criminalize it if they do.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right. And I mean, Musk, this rich fellow with lots of companies, I mean, has just announced to the world, this is it. I've had talks with him. I told him I told Newsom, the governor of California, if he did this, I would take my companies out. This is the last straw of 100 last straws. Yeah. And yet nobody's paying attention to that either. I cannot find anyone who knows what about the law that Gavin Newsom just signed in California. No one
The
knows about it.
media,
because it's
the media
discussed.
doesn't know how to frame this issue. The media in the U.S. It's there's a hot sizzling culture war in the U.S. right now, and the media is on the side of the Democrats and the left, and
Right.
they don't know how to handle this issue because on this issue, the Democrats and the left are taking a position that is it contravenes popular opinion, contravenes scientific fact, and is in every way the wrong regressive view. So the media is just trying to bury everything, and they're trying to frame. The only time you hear little blips about the gender mess in the U.S. media is when people working in the U.S. media are trying to frame it as big, bad, evil, right-wing, hate-filled bigots who want to be mean to, gentle little gender benders. And anything that it violates that framing of the story, they do not know how to process it.
No.
And I've heard a
And
lot
it
of
does
inside
not
information
help.
about working with journalists in the U.S. who they're utterly oblivious to how to handle this issue. The journalists in the U.S. are absolutely do not it takes them so long to for the penny to drop. Yeah. Sorry, Graham, you look like you got something to say.
Sorry. No, I just wanted to, before we went on much further, just explain who Christina is because we have.
Oh, yes. Yes.
You're our perfect guest.
Straight into conversation. Yeah.
In that you're straight into the conversation and you enjoyed it with us. But I was just wondering if we could tell people a little bit about yourself. I was very excited to speak to you because, you're one of the first authors in a long time who's been cancelled, who didn't write a book called The Truth About Trout or whatever. Sorry, Helen, no offense. But is actually Vox was like a huge bestseller, extremely in my kind of wheelhouse in terms of what I enjoy. Although I haven't read it, I have to add because it's I just found out about it recently, but it's a brilliant idea about women in a kind of future dystopian world who are only allowed to say a certain amount of words a day, and they have. I believe there's a thing that counts down the words, and after that you can't speak. And oh my God, for you to then go through this, I've often found that this feels like you enter into a story, a weird story that you just couldn't have seen coming. Is that how you look at it?
It's ironic, isn't it? Particularly when you consider that. So Vox was my first novel, and it was written quite quickly. Lots of things were going on. My literary agent was pregnant and said, "If you want to do this, you better do it by this date." And it was an unimaginable deadline, but we did it. Yeah. The interesting thing about Vox was that it was pitched to editors here in the U.S. Mm-hmm. a week after the Me Too hashtag came into being. Mm. So Penguin Random House heavily pushed this as the Me Too book, right? Or the novel for the Me Too movement. And of course, the Me Too movement, in its essence, I think there were different sort of, flavors of it. But in its essence, it was about women. It was focused on women. It was pro-women. It even went so far as to say, some people went so far as to say, screw it, I believe the woman. That's what Me Too means. And, fuck due process, which I obviously don't agree with. I mean, that seems like a very, very bad road to travel down. So it's fascinating to me that my book, which was, hailed as the Handmaid's Tale 2.0 and the Me Too movement book and the feminist manifesto and whatnot, even though I was saying, well, really, I'm just not that hardcore or anything. It's mostly about free speech, but hey, believe what you will. And now these very same people are saying, what women?
Yeah.
I mean, it's and I think the publishing industry has gone quite mad. I do worry very specifically, not about me. I'm fine. I can be retired and garden and do needlework and learn to play the cello or bass or whatever that is that Helen's got there next to her. But I do really worry about the sort of the pre-cancellation, because I think that we're in a place right now, and we know this because we saw what happened when that group Scene in Publishing announced itself a few weeks ago, right at the end of June. We know exactly what happened. We saw people in the publishing industry. We saw commissioning editors for the big 5 or the big 6, or however many there are now. We saw literary agents with well-known literary agencies. We saw marketing executives again at the major publishers. We saw all these people saying, "You're disgusting. This is shameful. This group should not exist. I don't want to be associated with anyone in this group." And most importantly, they stated publicly, and you know this because I had it on my Twitter account. They stated publicly for all and everyone to hear that they would not accept submissions or queries from anyone affiliated with Scene in Publishing.
Wow.
That and the publishing houses are aware of what they were doing. They must be. I know that they are because I tagged some of them in my responses, and I heard back from my publisher saying, "Oh, well, if somebody might be interested in talking to you." I'm like, I don't want to talk to anyone. It's you. I don't have anything to say to you. You need to address why your marketing executive is calling people who are standing for women's sports and spaces and the non-mutilation of children as shameful and disgusting, and saying to the world that they don't want to have anything to do with them. Because if that's happening, if these people are emboldened enough to say these things in public, then that means that their attitudes are being tolerated within the publishing houses, and they know that. They know their attitudes are being tolerated. So we can't really ever prove a negative. We cannot say, well, this author wasn't promoted, or this book wasn't bought, or this author was not offered representation because he or she is gender critical or anything else. We can't prove that, right? Because as we know, the publishing industry operates in a, no means for whatever reason. It's only a yes means yes. So it simply boggles the mind. I mean, are there people who are in fact not pushing certain books or certain authors? Are they not sending emails? Are they, just bypassing the manuscript altogether if they see a name they don't like?
Oh yeah, like
Sure.
that brings us neatly onto Waterstones, which where I brought out a memoir last year, and I certainly wouldn't expect to walk into a single bookshop and see it. I would just not expect that. And in the same way, there's been real suppression of Helen Joyce's book, Kathleen Stock's book, and many others. And it's true what you're saying. Cancellation happens silently and quietly. It doesn't announce itself usually. And what was great about your story, Christina, is that you kind of brought it out into the light. Could you explain to people? You don't have to. I'm sure you've told millions of people about it, but can you explain to people the bare bones of it?
Oh, absolutely. So in this, let's say, maelstrom of shame and disgust and everything else that we were hearing, I did mention something about a marketing executive at HarperCollins, and how I didn't think this was really right for someone within the publishing industry to call us shameful and disgusting. And what do you have to think about? What do you have to say about those people? And a woman entered into the fray, saying, "Well, that's fine. I'll just rip up your books and bin them today. Thanks for the heads up," or something. I have no idea who this is. I look at the account, I look at the bio, I see that it's someone who is a bookseller at Waterstones. At the time, I actually thought bookseller meant something a little bit grander than it seems to mean. I didn't realize it meant somebody who worked in a Waterstones shop. I thought it meant someone who was, let's say, buying books or who had decision making power.
Right.
Because that's what it would mean here in the US, right? I mean, I would never, a bookseller would be someone who's actually making decisions.
Yeah, a bookseller is an executive and not a clerk. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So I responded or retweeted it, and I said, wow, I mean, here's a bookseller at Waterstones saying to the public that she's, going to take my books and rip them up and bin them. And it didn't really matter which books she was talking about, whether it's stock or personal copies or what have you. It was just, why would you do that to an author if you're working for a large bookstore chain? And then all this stuff happened, and a week later, she's crying and continuing to call me a hateful person, because obviously it's all my fault. People are convinced that I, with all of my superpowers, actually engineered this sacking.
Let's put that to bed once and for all. Did you have any communication with Waterstones before?
Other than the tweet that said, "Are you okay with this, Waterstones?" No.
Yeah, right.
No,
Okay.
They never attempted to get in touch with me. I never got in touch with them. There were no emails. There were no phone calls. There was absolutely nothing.
Yeah. I mean, and also the thing that they never say when they're talking about this case, the other side, is they never point out that, Waterstones has some strict instructions around your behavior on social media. And, she broke it. She was insulting to an author,
And specifically, some of those instructions, if the documents that I saw are authentic, and I don't have any reason to believe they aren't authentic. They seem perfectly reasonable. I mean, we have to put this in context. The context is that we're not talking about a woman who was a plumber. Right, or a fireman, or firewoman. We're talking about a woman who works for a company that sells books.
Yeah.
And so in their social media guidelines, they're not just going to say, don't do anything really stupid on social media, but they're going to specifically say, don't harass authors or publishers or editors or people in the book industry. And that's what she did. And that's, I think it's testament. No, she's got another job. That's fine. I really don't have a bone to pick with Tilly, because the thing is, it's not the Tillys of the world that are the problem. It's everybody who tolerates it. And I've been saying this on Twitter quite a bit. It's not even the marketing executive that's the problem. It's the CEO of the same company who stands up in front of a bunch of people at a garden party a week later and says they're absolutely for free speech. There will be no censorship going on at the publishing house. And yet these people feel sufficiently emboldened. And Tilly, I think, felt sufficiently emboldened because there is an implicit tolerance and acceptance within the industry that it's more than, if you say anything.
It's more than that. It's not implicit tolerance. It's almost a celebration. If you are prepared to, protect, stand up for trans rights, it's something that you think that will actually you get celebrated for. People will hold you up as a paragon of virtue, literally virtue signaling. It's that this is why it's done. And then the crying. It's all because I'm so shocked that people that some people sort of push back, because I'm just doing this for the greater good. It's,
what I find,
it's not just tolerated. It is absolutely it's celebrated.
Yes, I agree with you.
And what I find most fascinating is that they're coming at it clearly from the point of view that we and you, Christina, really are evil people. It's like it's pure Scientology cult thinking. It's suppressive persons. It's all this sort of thing. So it doesn't even register to them that they might cause controversy by having this opinion, because they've convinced themselves that we are monsters.
Absolutely. And the things that I got to a point, it was almost a relief, actually, because we're all called lots of things, and I'm sure that you all have been the target as well. Every kind of word in the book. I got called so many things, so many times in such rapid succession within that sort of week and a half long period that it doesn't hurt anymore. It's like it's meaningless, right? I mean, the word fascist is meaningless. The word Nazi is meaningless.
Yeah.
The word, extreme right-wing religious fundamentalist, or that phrase, is meaningless. Not to mention the fact that it doesn't even apply to me. So,
you know what I always think it is, Christina? Like I remember when there were reviews, like reviews bands. I used to buy all the music weeklies and read reviews. And if one review came out and said this album was great, I'd believe it. And then if there was another review and a different one, and I read it afterwards, I'd believe that one too. And when I was writing, I didn't actually always take into account the power of seeing things written down. It gives you an authority. But now we're in this place where you have book TikTokers and people going on to Goodreads. I found out that Helen Joyce's husband is being targeted by 1-star reviews on Goodreads. He's a science fiction author. Now has nothing to do with this. So it's sorry, I've lost my track a little bit, but yeah. So oh yes, I know what it was. So in a way, Christina, it's kind of a good lesson for. I was cancelled very famously over here, but it's a good lesson. It's one of the positives about cancellation is that you suddenly get a lack of respect for the written word, which is a good protective thing to have in this day and age,
Right. Well, and also you get to a point where you really don't have anything to lose. So, because if this had happened a few years ago, I mean, I would have been instantly dropped. I'm quite convinced.
Yes.
By at least, my literary agent say. At this point, I don't have one of those. I don't have a publisher, and it just doesn't matter anymore. Nobody can drop me. We've already sold the books, probably 250,000 copies of Vox in the U.S. You can't unsell those books. You can't just, make all of that stuff.
No. Like J.K. Rowling says, when somebody says, "I'm going to burn your book," she'd be like, "Yeah, but I've already got the royalties."
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, hers are probably a little bit more than mine, but.
but I presume you're still in the position, Christina, where you can retire and you don't have to be subjected to these people.
I'm fine. Yeah, I'm doing all right. There's, writing was a later in life kind of a career switch for me. So I had done, I'd done other things prior to that.
But I'm just curious, are you still kind of burning to write another book? Are there ideas that are in your notebook or no?
I have a few completed manuscripts, which I love. And I have some partials, I've got plenty of ideas because every time I read the headlines, there's another book. And, but I'm not writing. I haven't even gone back to flash fiction. So I probably haven't written more than a few bits and pieces in about a year. But at this time last year, my dad was dying, and so that was really awful, and I haven't quite gotten over that.
Yeah.
So
I'm sorry to hear that.
So that's all right. I mean, thank you. I'm sorry to hear it too. It sucks, but he was a good dad, Lou. So there is that. It's just that I think that's part of what's going on with me too, about the feeling like there's nothing to lose. And it's not, oh, wow about me. It's that, when he died, I felt like I was kicked in the teeth. So you can't kick me in the teeth any harder. Nobody can.
But
the bookseller can't, Waterstones can't, editors can't. Nobody can kick me.
But the fact that you feel this way, I think is really helpful to other people, because you've stood up and you've shown that you're prepared to say, what are you going to do? I'm just going to carry. I'm not going to be cowed. I'm not going to be prepared to just accept this. Because somebody needs to say no to this. Somebody needs to stand up. There are a few of us here and there standing up, but the more of us that do, the more of us that can. So, well done. Well
Yeah.
done.
Thanks. I think what really clinched it for me as well was this. So this spring, my last book was released in the UK about 12 months ago, August 2023. And then it was released in paperback in the UK and in the US by my UK publisher in this past spring. And when I wrote to my publisher, my UK publisher, and said, so I just wanted to know, was a review copy sent to Publishers Weekly or Kirkus or Library Reads, or put out on Edelweiss, which is kind of the Library Reads sort of triggering mechanism here for books that are about to come out.
Yeah.
Sort of like NetGalley, but more for librarians, I believe. And I was told that no, that the review copies were not sent out to any of these.
Wow.
It takes an email, right? I mean, we're talking about a digital copy. I've gotten starred reviews from, Kirkus and Publishers Weekly in the past. And I think the sentence really had a good chance of getting at least a positive review, if not a starred review.
Yeah.
And I was told that it was not sent out to any of these reviewers.
This goes to show that. Sorry,
we had a musical ready to go. We had a whole musical based on a TV show I did called Father Ted, and we had rehearsed it. It was on its feet.
Musical.
Yes, it was on its feet and everything, and they just said, no, we're not doing it because you're involved. I mean, it's an extraordinary time. But I do think we're living through something that's a bit like McCarthyism and a bit like certain convulsions of the past. The cultural revolution and things like that. Christina, can I ask one last question? Because it's kind of a funny story, I think, a little bit. Was the first time you noticed something weird was going on when you were asked to change the film of Vox? Would that be fair to say?
The first time I noticed something weird was going on in the industry, you mean?
Yes. Yeah.
No. I don't know. No, that was that. I was that I didn't see that screenplay until long after I had, let's say, joined your crowd.
Right.
Yeah, but when I did see the screenplay, I thought, you've got to be kidding me, because we've got a woman, we've got female producers, we've got a female star and / producer.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a female-owned Level Forward, a female-owned production company, a female screenwriter, and yet they took one of my lesbian characters and made her into a man. They transed my lesbian character.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this is all women who did this, right? I mean, all women who did this. They transed my lesbian character. There are 2 lesbian characters, so this was the more minor one. Did it affect the story? Not at all. Did it matter? No, not at all. It was just a way to make sure that the world of women who were restricted to 100 words a day in Vox included men, which is absolutely preposterous, because I can't think of...
preposterous.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah. So they wanted to renew the option, and I said no, and that I just took the rights back, and now they're in someone else's hands, which is lovely. So yeah.
There's a whole other conversation in how many women are driving this, and how publishing is such a female industry. It's so strange.
It is very strange, and I'd be like to explore that some more, I think, because you're right. Publishing is, typically very, very female centric. I mean, lots of women in positions of power. I think, going back to one thing that we were talking about, and I know you've got to go on, but part of it is, and the reason we see the Democrats in bed with this movement as well, and I think the women as well, I am convinced that it has to do with the package dealing of LGB and the rest of the alphabet. I'm convinced. I think the public has been sold a lie that this is really LGB.
Yeah.
This is an LGB issue, and nobody wants to go back to that time where we hated, well, not me, but where lesbians and gays and bisexuals were vilified.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
They
100%.
think they've been given another chance to do it right from the start.
And they don't want the war to end. People really, when on the day, I don't even remember the exact day, when the Supreme Court finally passed the law that equalized all 50 states for marriage and housing and workplace protections, instead of the gay rights organizations throwing a ticker tape parade, they were all saying, they're panicking. They're saying, pay no attention. There's still more work to be done. Don't worry. Don't worry. It's not over. They were terrified that they won their objectives. And you can see the psychology of people on the left. Gay rights has so much enthusiasm. Well, there's a strange paradox that a movement for rights can only exist when there are people who oppose it.
Right.
Because once everybody's for it, it's won. And the weird thing about gay rights is now that everybody's for it, there's nothing to be for anymore. Because once you've got everybody on your side, you don't have anyone to work to bring on side anymore. So the irony is it turns into this weird meltdown where once you get everybody who's in bed with the idea we got to get everyone else to join us, there's no one else to get to join. So they actually have to create a new movement to get everyone to try to join. So trans is where everybody decided they're all for the righteous war to stop homophobia. But once everybody was for the righteous war to stop homophobia, they did stop homophobia by definition. So they had to create a new war to replace it so they could keep the rainbows going. And of course, they updated the rainbow with the extra little, this is all just a strange psychological phenomenon where people don't understand that when you all are for a movement, that movement is over.
Right.
And
you have to maintain victim status too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you conquer bias or bigotry or what have you, then that means nobody can be victim to it anymore. And that for some people, I think that's really a problem. I mean, not that I don't want victims, obviously, but I think some people enjoy that status.
Oh, there's deep psychological anxiety. The idea that gay rights is, it's not over because a lot of the people who oppose gay rights, they didn't change their mind. They're not coming to the table and saying, look, we're sorry. The Heritage Foundation, these groups, they still are opposed to gay rights. They've just been marginalized and they're waiting to come back. They haven't changed their minds. They're still out there. They're just outside of the levers of power. And we know that it's very possible that they could regain those levers of power,
Sorry, but we've gone over the hour. Christina, this was absolutely everything I wanted it to be. I am so pleased that you joined us.
Thank you.
Can I just ask last thing? Are you in scene publishing? Is that why you were getting into trouble, or did you just defend it on Twitter?
Am I in scene publishing?
Yes.
I don't know. Not really. I follow.
I thought you might be among the people who set it up, and that's why you got.
No, the first thing I ever heard of it was when it launched, and then I saw all of this stuff happening, and thought, wow, what's going on? Somebody needs to say something about that.
Well, I am going to download Vox on Kindle because, as I say, it's right up my street.
I already have. I just did. I did earlier. So I'm looking forward to reading it this evening.
And I hope, and I think everybody should, because it is not what we would usually be talking about on this show. Yeah. It's from the time when the world was actually made sense, and science fiction authors were writing stories instead of living through them.
And it was only 7 years ago. Imagine that. But.
Oh, Christina, it was really lovely to talk to you. I think I'd like you to come on again so that we could, sort of chat some more. I think
it would be my pleasure.
Lots of lovely ideas.
It would be my pleasure.
Actually, and also, Christina, well, I hate to do this. It might be putting you in an awkward position, but I just did an interview with Polly Clark, who's recently come out as a Turk. She's another.
Yes, I know Polly.
Sorry?
I know Polly.
You know Polly, yes. And she did a really good job. We didn't really speak about the issue. We spoke about the craft, and it was so much fun. So if you get a chance, and you do like talking about writing,
I do.
I would love to see that myself, because I just find it fascinating how other people do it,
I'd be delighted.
Good. Okay, I'll let her know. Thank you so much, Christina.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
We will see you later. Bye.
Okay, bye.
Oh, that was great.
That was great.
I was so
That was really great.
yeah, because I was kind of like it was such a kerfuffle, and it was another one of these times where the truth was kind of hard to figure out because so many people were lying about it. And there's now a Waterstones. They're trying to boycott it, you know. But the thing about them boycotting it is that all they do with a boycott is they show how few their numbers are, you know, how few their numbers really are. Your sock accounts can't boycott it too. Listen, we should finish it up. Is there anything else before we go?
I just want to say, people are asking about Wine with Women. It went away for a couple of years because my father died, and you know, so I had to sort of put it on hold. But then I also had some trouble with work, which is now sorted out, and Wine with Women is coming back. So I just want to say to the people who are asking in the comments. So yes, I will be bringing it back. I think I'm just going to have August off because of holidays and things, and I will be bringing Wine with Women back in September. So
that's wonderful news. I see Christina is still here, so I'm gonna don't go away, Christina. When we say goodbye, it's just to the public. Thanks everyone for joining in. Brilliant to see everybody.
Yes, that was lovely.
Yeah.
See you next week.
See you next Sunday. Bye-bye.
Like and subscribe.